I'm Rob Drummer, the Artistic Director of Boundless Theatre, and we were the lead partner on our Creative Europe funded project Extended Universe. This project has been on quite a journey. It had its sort of inception over a kind of series of coffees in Copenhagen, probably in like 2018, maybe even before that, and a conversation specifically about how we develop young adult audiences and how we can do that across Europe in a sort of collaboration with theatres.
For Boundless, it's the sort of project that marks a change in the way we work internationally from what we used to do historically. It's a big achievement, so definitely a huge sense of pride and accomplishment in the team and in everyone's sort of individual roles within it.
Extended Universe is effectively an audience development project. All the partners were interested in exploring how an audience that, certainly in the case of our European partners, at the time the project started didn't have. So how do you build a sort of older teenage, young adult audience for new work? Was one of the real driving factors in the project. And with that in mind, the mechanism for developing that audience was Transmedia, something that we hadn't experimented with before. And very simply, I suppose, that meant looking at different forms and how different narratives could be interconnected. So not just looking at live storytelling, which we're very used to in theatre, but thinking about digital spaces, thinking about more interactive spaces. 4 theatres across Europe and a group of 4 writers, as well as their creative teams, working over quite a sustained period of 4 years to co-create a narrative universe, an extended universe, this world of Elusia, and to create within that 4 distinct stories that can be understood in their own way as standalone pieces. But if you were as an audience to kind of come across more than one, there would be a real richness. That was only possible because we were collaborating at every step of the way with young adults. The project kicked off in Athens, where the writers and the artistic leads from all of the 4 theatres met to discuss the themes of the project, to spend some time with the advisory group in Athens, and to really start imagining how this project was going to come together. The 4 writers on Extended Universe are Nina from London, Oriol from Barcelona, Sarah from Copenhagen, and Christos from Athens.
So I'm Nina, and I wrote Radio Elusia, which was a 5-episode, 6-episode podcast audio drama, which focused on a sort of pirate radio station being run by teenagers. And as a piece, I think I was kind of interested in like youth activism and ideas about transmission and ideas about protest. Collaborating with other writers has come at like 2 ends of the spectrum. Like either I'm making something incredibly like experimental that isn't a script at all, or I'm in like a TV writer's room. And I think what felt different about this was that we were collaborating on this shared umbrella project, and we were trying to create this world that had these connections, but we weren't making one piece. So it felt like finding these connections was really useful, but wasn't like totally. What was also really important was to keep the space for each of us to be able to make our own world.
So hi, I'm Oriol. I'm from Barcelona, and I wrote Karaoke Elusia. And the show is basically like the themes of the show would be friendship and also mental health during the teenage years, during youth. 3 friends spending a night at a karaoke that would be like their graduation, but at the same time the three friends guide you through what has been their past year that has been pretty complicated, and there's been one of them that has tried to end his life, and the show explores how these 3 friends and how all their environment is or isn't ready for what's going on. Being the one that had like the least experience of the group, I did like feel very drawn to how does Zara understand theater? How does Nina understand theater? Like, how do they work? How do they write? For me, at least those first workshops, I felt like I was being offered like many ways of writing and working and understanding theater, and that I could like pick things from there, and that was really cool.
So we met in Barcelona as one of the many creative workshops we hosted throughout the project, and this was the first time the artist and all of us really kind of rolled our sleeves up and got stuck into what work we wanted to create. So over a number of days we worked with the advisory group in Barcelona who showed us around their city, which was an incredible experience, getting to see sort of through their eyes the experiences that made living in Barcelona exciting to them, but also starting to see the beginnings of working with Bob, who was kind of live drawing and sketching the work we were making. We'd run a sort of creative task where our themes had been used as a starting point for some image selection. So again, the advisory groups had gone out and kind of collected this sort of photography sort of resource. And then the writers were tasked by the sort of artistic leads of each of the organizations to start thinking about this extended universe, this world they wanted to create. So, you know, the sort of word Elusia kind of came out of that work. Some of the symbolism in the pieces came out of that work. You know, there was certainly a framework we were applying, and Jesper and I were trying to guide that creativity. But essentially the writers had their sort of first chance in Barcelona after having met in Athens a few months earlier to start shaping this project for themselves. So out of that came this constitution, which they all then used to kind of write their individual work.
It was nice like to be collaborating and working on something that wouldn't really be the final piece, but it was like an excuse to start the engine.
We started testing some of the transmedia elements, but really it's where the kind of creativity started sort of flowing, which, you know, after a few days in Athens at the sort of end of 2018, which was, you know, an amazing experience actually to kind of see that city, but really was exploratory and kind of quite early. I think it was really about building some trust. Barcelona was where the project really got started.
So whilst the artists and the artistic leads were having lots of fun in the creative process, obviously for us producing leads, we were talking about how are we actually going to break up the project and deliver each element of it. So we had regular steering group meetings, the first proper one of which was in Barcelona, and the objective there was to really kind of work through our different marketing practices. What do we know about our audiences? What do we not know? How can we kind of learn from each other's practice and use the best elements of that to create a journey of discovery for our audience? So how, as I said before, how will they go from watching a show to listening to the podcast to viewing the webcomics?
In London in October 2019, the writers had first drafts of their individual shows, and these drafts were then workshopped and developed by a group of young actors in London that Boundless Theatre sort of put together, and then those extracts were presented to an audience of young people as well for feedback, including a sort of first headphone sort of version of Radio Elusia. And those workshops and performances were really instrumental in the writers seeing the connections between their work.
So the COVID pandemic, I mean, if you can imagine like a global sort of disaster to happen at a particular time, you sort of don't want it to happen at the worst possible time for the delivery of a huge international project. But that is what happened, and you know, it was challenging in that we had to sort of see what was going on in each individual country and how, obviously quite rightly, every organisation had to prioritise looking after themselves, looking after their staff, and the sort of viability of their organisation. So for a long time we were just sort of supporting each other, listening, what's going on, how can we help, and how can we still try and deliver this project even though it would have to be different.
It's fair to say that some of the more ambitious plans were absolutely disrupted by COVID and the inability to get people to interact with the work. We had to change the project timeline quite significantly, and some of those more intricate experiments were just harder to deliver in a sort of global pandemic.
It was really good with the COVID break because there was so much to learn. I mean, Bob has never worked on a theatre stage before, and it was also new for Jesper. It was also new for the actors. So in that process, I think they all had to, learn new stuff and figure out how it would work together.
The biggest challenge was due to COVID. We had to make this project very long. And we had like a first period that we worked with the youth advisory board, but then we did the performance many months later. It was about a year later. So I think the challenge was to find this proper way of connecting things, like what the youth advisory board offered and how to put it in the performance. I think that was the challenge, but still I think the guys there did a great job, and they managed to do this the best way they could under these circumstances.
I suppose looking back, it's actually quite extraordinary what has come out of it despite the pandemic. The world of Elusia is an incredibly rich world, and even though we couldn't do exactly what we wanted to do by taking audiences on a very particular journey, we've still proven that this process, that this creative collaboration has resulted in a really rich environment that genuinely speaks to young audiences. And so, pandemic or no pandemic, the collaboration was successful, even if it was a different kind of successful.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I'm from Copenhagen, Denmark, and I wrote a piece called Elusia, Your Dream is Just a Click Away. And it's about this young girl that is struggling with life, struggling with having connections with other people, having some social anxiety, and she really have a hard time engaging with the world around her, until she gets this flatmate that introduces her to a game, mind explosion game, in order for her to become free of the own kind of prison that she put herself into. So it's basically a young woman finding her way into the world. I think that I gained a lot from meeting with the Danish team of young people. I think something that what really stuck and actually became very important for my play was when all these young people had to bring an object that was something they connected with utopia, and all of them had an item that could take them somewhere where there was no pressure, where the actually even saying, I like to paint a picture because I'm an amateur, nobody will judge me here. And I don't want to be, I want to find a place where I'm actually an amateur, because then it will keep on being a safe space instead of always being pressured and being measured.
My name is Jesper Pedersen, and I'm
Who are you?
My name is Jesper Pedersen. I'm a theatre director, and I'm the director of Elusia. And I'm also responsible for thinking up the extended universe idea together with our collaborators at Boundless Theatre.
Hi, I'm Maya, I'm the managing director here at the Teater Grob, and also the producer of the production that we did together with the Extended Universe family and our production, Elusia.
The workshops we did together in Athens and Barcelona and London, some of the discussions I had with Sarah about trying to find a way of creating a show that was relevant, and part of the discussions we had with our advisory board, we kind of decided on basing a story that deals with the pressure from a performance society, but kind of modeling our own story on Fight Club. So it's basically Fight Club for women without the toxic masculinity.
Well, I think I'm particularly proud of the response from the audience, and that we managed just after the reopening after COVID, that we actually managed to have almost full capacity sold out shows for 15 days. But the response from the young people especially, I'm really proud that we managed to communicate with them, because I think the play, the plot is quite complex, and I was a bit worried that, you know, are we gonna be able to keep the young people keen and interested, or are they gonna kind of not buy a ticket or not recommend it to friends and stuff? But we certainly felt that word of mouth together with all the stories and the sharing on social media really helped to increase the interest and the idea of the show. And then particularly I would say the after talks we had 4 nights where we invited some young sociologists that had worked on researched on this being a young university student and being in the beginning of adult life but still struggling with a lot of things, and I think that match was really interesting and kind of extended the theater show to a more like broader, it widened the debate and the discussions, so the artistic ideas came to life in the debate and vice versa. And I think that was a particularly highlight during the performance period.
As well as Bob working with the creative team in Denmark on the production and the live drawing element, he also instigated a webcomic, which was one of the key transmedia elements. This webcomic, which sits on the project website and is called The Key of Elusia, connects all 4 of the other stories in Extended Universe, but is in itself a new story. The webcomic was incredibly useful in terms of connecting the narratives, and Bob's contribution to the project as an artist actually was really interesting. Not only was he embedded within the creative workshops in Barcelona and London, but was really able to spend time with the 4 writers and take the stories they were telling into a new story itself. Bob's creativity was incredible, and the resulting webcomic is a real highlight of the project.
Hello, I'm Marili. I'm artistic director of Entropia, contemporary performing arts company based in Athens, Greece, working internationally. And I was the director and the artistic lead in the project Extended Universe. I directed the final play entitled The Siege of Elusia. I enjoyed the whole process, the whole creative process. I think the transnational meetings and exchanges we had with all the partner organizations involved in the project, they were highly stimulating and exciting. Creatively and artistically speaking, they were very intriguing and very interesting to me, and they definitely deepened my knowledge on transmedia. I think there is a lot to explore there, And for me, the interesting thing in this project was exactly this, that it gave us the opportunity to explore possible functions and uses of transmedia platforms and transmedia extensions in an art form which is live, which is something quite new. I think also after the COVID experience and all the new challenges that live arts are facing, probably there is something valuable to extract from these platforms, from these transmedia uses, new hybrid forms possibly of creating performing arts, new mixtures.
One of the really unique parts of the project was working with advisory groups in each of the 4 countries. At Boundless, we've had an advisory group since 2016, made up of 15 to 25-year-olds who are across everything we do. They advise us strategically, creatively, and we were really keen that that model was tested in each of our partners' sort of organisations. What I've certainly learned, and from the success of Radio Elusia in particular, is that sort of representation of a teenage experience, which was there at the very beginning, totally attracted an audience. When we look at the most vocal kind of members of our audiences, they're all in their late teens, early 20s, and that's very much the group that we worked with. So yeah, I mean, the advisory groups are something that I am evangelical about and talk to a lot of organisations about in my sort of day-to-day work. And were always going to be the most exciting part of our project. You know, how do you hold space for young people? You know, the proof for me and the team at Boundless was, you know, Nina handing Radio Elusia over. The second season of our podcast was written by 6 incredible writers, one who was 16 years old, and nobody was older than sort of 25, and they were attracted to write for that show because of the first season and because they saw themselves and their experiences there.
They already had a lot of experience. Despite their young age, they had a lot of life experience and reflections on society and their own lives, which was really interesting and I think inspired Sarah, the writer.
I found working with the Spotlight Tower Hamlets group that we were working with was amazing, because points when like I would, which I think you find in every process, but like I would waver in like, what am I making? Is this good? Is this right? Does anybody care about this at all? Like, it was really good to just kind of outsource that to them and be like, okay, you know, allowing for a certain amount of like possibility that they're just saying like, yeah, it's fine, whilst being like, what is she doing? We spent enough time with them over enough weeks that it felt like that level of trust of like, okay, no, you guys will tell me if this is like completely awful.
There was this moment in the process where I just like tried also to connect with my 16-year-old self and like think like what did I want to see and didn't see like in that moment, and like try like making this fusion between my 16-year-old self and the advisory group teenagers was like, I guess, when it all clicked.
I think art is a very powerful thing, and then art can lead us to an utopia, because art can express a lot of things and a lot of things that words cannot. So my utopia would be a world with lots of art.
La nit al karaoke va ser la nostra festa.
Allà dins tot era possible i tot estava bé.
I tu estaves bé.
I'm Victor Muñoz. I am responsible of international activities at Sala Beckett. I'm responsible also of the project Extended Universe in Barcelona. Yes, the show was a real success. I think people really loved it. It was sold out most of the nights, and Uriel Puig, the playwright, won the award to most promising playwright in the Theater Critics Prize last year. So we were really happy with it, and so we thought that because of the COVID restrictions, there were probably many people who hadn't been able to see the show and who should see the show. And as a result, we decided to have a new run at Sala Beckett, a new 3 weeks run. And then, moreover, it's also touring around Catalonia and Mallorca.
Just in my personal experience with the project, is that the idea of doing the extended universe and of Boundless uniting with these other theaters and proposing these theaters, in this case Sala Beckett, to open space for young creators and young audiences, has given me and the rest of the team an opportunity to work in that space that maybe in other ways would have been a lot more harder. It forced an open door, and I feel like that just that happening is amazing.
We expect that more young people come to see the show, that discover this story, and that somehow feel that theatre is not only classics, which is where schools usually take them to sit, but that theatre can talk about them, can talk about their problems, their experiences, and their happiness. And hopefully, if they see that on a stage, they will like it, they will love it, and they will come back to see other plays, which is basically the basic idea.
Hello, welcome to Radio Elusia. This is your girl Suze, giving you live broadcast feed.
I'm being recorded.
I'm a watcher as well.
Radio Elusia was one of the key transmedia elements of Extended Universe, a fiction podcast which now runs over 2 seasons and a special live show with original composition and sound design from Father, who are a sort of London-based sound design studio, and was recorded just before the sort of first lockdowns here in the UK in February 2020.
So you just directed your episode of Radio Elusia.
Yeah.
So how's your experience?
I mean, really different. I mean, I'm someone who usually does theatre, and whilst you still want to kind of create that same sense of drama, there's a lot of technical things that you have to worry about when you're recording something, thinking about doing multiple takes, thinking about trying to get the same degree of consistency. You have to give all of that story through one medium.
The way that I approach writing is all about this relationship with the audience and about this transaction between what is going on the stage and what they're asking of the audience, and this is all happening live. And so it was a big shift that I maybe didn't register when Rob first said, do you want to write a podcast? That the audience wouldn't be there and the audience wouldn't all be together. And this piece was not being engaged with in a particular time, and people could engage with it however they wanted to.
These streets are our streets! This city is our city! These streets are our streets! Set this city free! Set this city free!
So Elusia is a world kind of similar to our own, but this is a world that's been taken over by, a very autocratic regime. There's a lot of high-level surveillance going on in a way that has really oppressed the people.
How was that? Yeah.
Overwhelming. I thought overwhelmed is so many different emotions. What teenagers
it's very intense because it's right in your ear.
Same haircut.
Hey Morag, how's this morning been at Pod UK?
It's been really fun meeting so many people from the podcast world that we've only really interacted with obviously online, so it's nice to put faces to names and get some super top tips to help us when we launch in April.
That's been great actually, being here a few months ahead of when we launch. Just people are so generous. People are giving us really amazing advice. So
I feel like we should have just had a sticker that's I'm new here. It's great. It's been really, really fab.
Feels like a proper community.
Yeah, and we're now part of it.
My name is Valerie Van Sommerke and I play Leah.
My name's Mary Malone and I play Epoch. So I joined for season 2 and we recorded everything at home. So we had these crazy kits delivered to our houses, or in my case to my boat, and I set up a little studio in my boat, and it was mad.
For
our live episode, which I'm a bit nervous about, but I'm excited. It's just going to be in front of a bunch of people, so we're going to rehearse today, we've just gone through script, which has been really nice to hear just for the first time, and then just work on it so that we do to a bunch of random people, which is different because it's in real time and you don't know how the audiences are going to respond, so it's going to be that balance of sticking to your script and making sure you're in that world, but then also being painfully aware that a bunch of eyes you don't know are watching you, which is great. So
I mean, it's not like you've not done it before, you know?
You are absolutely right. You know what?
Advisory group of young adults, and one of the things that came up was this idea of empowering, and you often get this with organisations or companies that work with young people. We're going to empower young people, and this conversation I was having, this person said to me, I'm already empowered. I feel empowered. I don't need someone to come and empower me. I'd love someone to come and like give me some space and some kind of resource and some opportunities to kind of use that power. And it's really kind of been on my mind as I think about not just our work as a company, but about our audience, right? Like, I think this is a powerful audience we're trying to reach, and I'm really excited for them to get to know this show again. And you know, it's been a year since we launched it, and we're hoping we can kind of keep on delivering more work. But the ambition here is to connect artists, you know, young adult artists, to kind of then give them the opportunity to tell a story which I hope has a connection.
There's so much that I've taken away from our partners. It's such a privilege to actually spend such close working time with people who do the same thing you do, but in a different context and in a different culture, with different literary practices, with different producing practices, and with different marketing practices. So I feel like I've definitely grown as a producer, and I feel like there's so much that we will each take away from how we all work independently and make theatre work, make audience development work in our own context.
For me, I'm going to remember this project for the friendships that have been built, the sort of great artistic relationships that have developed. You know, I feel incredibly lucky to have seen Uriel, Sarah, Christos's and Nina's work develop over several years, and to do that in translation and to kind of have a chance to really engage with culture in the way we have, to visit Athens and Barcelona, to go to Copenhagen, and to welcome sort of our partners here to London, again, you know, is something that is much more difficult now for those of us in the UK. I think Creative Europe existing is so important, and although, you know, we're not entirely shut out, you know, the complexities around this type of work now are real. And that's before we even get into sort of the pandemic realities for theatre. But no, at the heart of this are a group of incredibly inspiring and sort of principled, creative theatre makers who've all stretched themselves so much, and the proof is in the work and in the audiences who've repeatedly come out or downloaded or engaged with the work. So, you know, long may that thinking continue and those partnerships continue.